Hello ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for listening to Mr. Laxton's video on this Chapter 9 practice test. So for this chapter you were asked 9.4 through 9.6, so those are just the three sections that are going to be on this test here. So if we look at the first couple here, it's just asking us to simplify. So it doesn't ask us to multiply, divide, do anything crazy. We just have to simplify. So we do that by factoring what's ever on the top and on the bottom. So I can take out a 2 out of this. So I'm left with 2 times x plus 2 on the top. And if I take out a 2, so I have x plus 2. Now I look at the bottom, and I have a trinomial, so I put that guy in the diamond. I have 4 and 4, so I have 2 times 2 gives me 4, and it adds to 4, so I have x plus 2 and x plus 2. So look here, I cross out those x plus 2 and the x plus 2 because it's on the top and on the bottom. So the only thing that's left on the top now is that 2. So I'm left with 2 over, and then one of those x plus 2's because it is still left on the bottom. Only one of them cancel out there. Alright, if I look at number 2 going on, I notice that this is difference of squares. So this is going to be x plus 3 and x minus 3. And on the bottom, I can factor out a 3x, so I'm left with x minus 3 on the bottom. So as a result, the x minus 3 and x minus 3 cancel each other out, and I'm left with x plus 3 on the top, and then 3x on the bottom. So for those couple there, just factor them while you can, and cross out what you can as well. Going on to number 3 here, I can multiply straight across. So that salmon sheet tells you that here. If we have some monomials, none of these guys factor, so I can multiply straight across. So I get 48, and then I have x to the 7th and x to the 7th. That makes x to the 14th. Remember, add those guys, and then I have y to the 11th. Now, looking on the bottom, I have 32, and I have y to the 5th, so I'm going to kind of write that over here, and I have x to the 3rd. So now, going through and simplifying this guy, look here, I can simplify 48 over 32. I know that 16 goes into both those guys, so I can simplify that to 3 over 2. And then now, if I look, I have 14 x's on the top, 3 on the bottom, so I'm left with x to the 11th on the top. And my y's cancel out, leaves me with 6 on the top. So that is my final answer there. Awesome. Now, going on, looking here, I notice that in number 4, I can take out a 4 out of here, so I'm left with x squared minus 9. This is kind of a trickier one because now here I'm left with a difference of squares here. So this guy turns into 4 x plus 3 and x minus 3 because that's the difference of squares rules there. And then now on the bottom here I could take out a 7, so I'm left with x plus 3, and I could take out a 2, so I'm left with x minus 3. So I'm left with 7 x plus 3 and 2, if I can fit that in there, x minus 3. So here I notice again that these x minus 3's cancel out, the x plus 3's cancel out, and I'm left with 4 on the top, and then I'm left with the 7 and then that 2 on the bottom, so that gives me 14, and 4 over 14 simplifies to 2 over 7. So that is my final answer there. No x's are left. Pretty cool. So number 5, it's division. So be careful when you see that. So division, we keep, switch this to multiplication, and then flip that last one. So here I'm going to simplify or keep the first one. So I get x to the 3rd minus 24x squared all over x squared minus x minus 12. I'm going to times now by the x squared minus 4x minus 21 because this guy flips, and then I put the 3x cubed minus 21x squared on the bottom. So now I can go through here and factor. This guy, I can take out a 6x squared, so I'm left with x minus 4. This guy up here, I put that negative 21 on the top, negative 4 on the bottom. I know that negative 7 and 3 multiplies the negative 21, adds a negative 4, so I have x minus 7 and x plus 3. Also, going on the bottom here now, I have negative 12 and negative 1. So two things here are negative 4 and positive 3. So I have x minus 4 and x plus 3. And over here, looking at this last one, I can take out a 3x squared out of there. So I'm left with x minus 7. So now going through and canceling out what I can. I cancel out the x minus 4, I can cancel out an x minus 7, and I cancel out an x plus 3. So I'm left with just the 6x squared and 3x squared. So if I actually look here, these x squareds cancel out with these x squareds, and I'm left with 6 over 3, which obviously simplifies to just 2 there. So just 2 for that one. No x's left. All right, looking at number 6, it is asking me to subtract here. So in order to add or subtract rational expressions, we need common denominators. So I look here, I do have common denominators, so I can actually just subtract. So this guy, I'm going to make that into a plus and make both of these the opposite. So I have 2x plus a negative 1x is going to be 1x. Negative 4 plus a positive 1 is going to be negative 3. And then I keep that same common denominator, which is 2x plus 8. So good there. We already have that least common denominator, so that is nice. All right, here for number 7, I look at my least common denominator, and I don't have common denominators here, so I'm going to have to make common denominators. So here I notice that this is difference of squares, so this is going to be x plus 3 and x minus 3. So actually, this guy right here is going to be my least common denominator. So I look, and how do I make this x plus 3 into that least common denominator? I got to tack on that x minus 3. So if I tack that onto the bottom, I got to tack it onto the top. So then I have 2x minus 3x minus 9. Okay, I'm going to put that in parentheses because it's all minus. I just distributed that 3 over here, all over that least common denominator, which is x plus 3 and x minus 3. Okay, so that minus has to talk to both of those guys, so it's negative 3x and plus 9. So this is going to be negative 1x plus 9 all over that common denominator, which is x plus 3 and x minus 3. So you don't have to FOIL that bottom out. This is good just how it is. So get that least common denominator. So number 8, I noticed that this x plus 7 and this x minus 1, they don't have anything in common. So here, if they don't have anything in common, you just got to multiply it by what's on the other side. So that's x plus 7 and x plus 7 over here. I got to multiply by x minus 1 over here and x minus 1 over here. So I can distribute that 6 and I can distribute the 2. So now I have 6x minus 6 plus 2x plus 14 all over that least common denominator, which is x minus 1 and x plus 7. All right, going through, combine like terms here. So I can combine my 6x and my 2x to be 8x. And I combine my negative 6 and my 14 to be plus 8. All over x minus 1 and x plus 7. That least common denominator. So adding those rational expressions, you need to get that least common denominator. All right, now for number 9, it asks me to solve these rational expressions. So I look here and I have to find out what my LCD is. So out of these guys, my LCD is going to be 6x squared. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to multiply that to everything. So I have 6x squared, I have 6x squared, and I have 6x squared. So I did that for a reason, because now I'm going to go through and cancel out my denominator. So my x squared, I can cancel out with that x squared. So I'm left with 12 minus this 6x squared, cancel out that x squared. So I'm left with minus x minus 6 equals this x cancels out with this x, this 6 cancels out with this 6. So I'm left with just that 1 and that x there. So I'm left with 1x. Alright, so now if I go through here, this negative has to talk to that x and it has to talk to that 6. Okay, so I can add that x over. So now if I combine these guys, I get 18 equals 2x. Divide by 2, and I get 9 equals x. Alright, it says be sure to check for extraneous solutions. So my check step here, I look to see if I plug in 9, does that give me 0 in any of my denominators? So I can say yes, 9 works, no 0 in denominators. Okay, so it doesn't give me any zeros in those denominators if I plug it into either of these three, so it works. Alright, so now going on to number 10. I have to factor these guys first. So if I look, two things that multiply to 6, add -5, -3, and -2. So this is going to be x minus 3 and x minus 2. This is going to be x minus 3 and x minus 2. So that is my least common denominator here. So here I have to multiply the top by x minus 3 and x minus 2, x minus 3 and x minus 2, and I have x minus 3 and x minus 2. So here I can see that this x minus 3 cancels out, the x plus 2's cancel out, the x minus 3's cancel out. So I'm left with this 6x minus 4, this 2, and then here these x minus 2's cancel out, and I'm left with this right here. So that I actually have to go through and actually FOIL. So I have on this left side, I have 6x minus 4 plus 2 equals, if I FOIL this guy now, I'm left with x squared minus 3x plus 3x minus 9. Alright, so if I go through here and look, this is going to be 6x minus 2 equals, combining these guys, equals, these guys cancel out, I get x squared minus 9. So here I'm going to have to solve a quadratic. So I have to get all these things on the same side. So I add this 2 over, subtract this 6x. So now I get 0 equals x squared minus 6x minus 7. Alright, so now I have to factor this guy here. So I factor this, I put -7 and -6. This is going to be, let's see here, +7, -7, +1, excuse me. So if I go through there, I'm going to turn this into 0 equals x minus 7 and x plus 1. So that is how I now set each of these guys equal 0. So I get x equals 7 and I get x equals -1. So those are my two solutions. So now if I check here real quick, my answer, if I plug in this 7 or this -1 into the bottoms of these guys, neither of them give me 0 in the denominator. So yes, they both work. Alright, so we're good there. So number 10, a little bit more tricky here. You had to actually eventually solve the quadratic at this point right here. So that's kind of the tricky point there. So if I go through here, let's take a look at this last one, number 11. In number 11, it's got a couple different things. You actually have to add these guys together first. So here I'm going to tack on the x minus 5 to this guy and the x minus 5 because I'm going to get those least common denominators to add. So now I have x plus 5 over here, and I have x plus 5 on the top. So now this guy over here, kind of some scratch work, becomes x minus 5 plus x plus 5 all over this x minus 5 times x plus 5. All right, so this guy ends up simplifying to these x's make 2x, these negative 5 and positive 5 cancel out, so I'm left with 2x over x minus 5 and x plus 5. So that's just kind of some preliminary work there. Now is where you actually have to do the division. So here I have this. So right now is what I have 2 over x plus 5 all over this 2x over x minus 5 and x plus 5. So that's what I have. So to divide, we talked about this a little bit earlier, so I'm going to switch this to multiplication and flip this guy around. So I have 2 over x plus 5 times now this x minus 5 and x plus 5 all over that 2x. Now if I look, I can cancel some stuff out. I can cancel out the x plus 5s. I can cancel out the 2's. So all I'm left with on the top is that x minus 5 and x on the bottom. So that simplifies all the way down to that. All right, so kind of a trickier one there that you have to add this guy on the bottom first and then keep switch flip here. All right, so you end up with that x minus 5. All right, that is me talking through the Chapter 9 practice test. If you have any further questions, please let me know. I would love to help. Be ready. You can do it.